Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Area Committee 9. At the moment, we don't have any members of the public joining, but it is being recorded. So for the purposes of the recording, I propose we start with a quick round table. So perhaps I'll just call everyone in the order that you're on my screen. So Julia, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Julia Foligno, Community Resources Programme Manager.
And Megan?
Thanks. Megan Hornady, Development Officer in Community Resources.
Magdalena?
Magdalena Burr, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, officers. Councillor Rippington.
Yeah, Councillor Tim Rippington, Brislington East.
Councillor Varney.
Councillor Andrew Varney, Brislington West.
Councillor Hayward.
Cam Hayward, Councillor for Knoll.
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Joss Clark, Brislington West.
Councillor Hernchin.
Councillor Katja Hernchin, Brislington East.
Councillor Hooker.
Councillor Jonathan Hacker, Stockwood.
Councillor Morris.
Hi, Graham Morris, Stockwood.
Thank you, councillors. And Josh.
Josh Lerner, Local Transport Manager. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. And a few more officers will join us presumably a little bit later, and I'm sure they'll introduce themselves as when the time comes. So moving swiftly down the agenda, no apologies. Well, apologies for absence were received from Councillor Clark, but Councillor Clark has managed to join. So other than that, yeah, we're all in attendance. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest to make, councillors? No.
No.
Item number 4 is public forum, and we haven't received any public forum statements or questions for today's meeting. So that's an easy one. So agenda item 5 is the bulk of this meeting. So councillors, we're going to have various updates from different council departments that are relevant to our area. So we'll allow the officers to present whatever update they've got for us, and then it'll be an opportunity to ask them questions and talk amongst debate amongst ourselves. I would ask that councillors, if you want to ask a question or if you want to speak, if you just raise your hand, and we'll follow normal kind of going through the chair etiquette, and I'll manage the debate. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Josh, if you're ready to go.
Thanks, Toby. Yeah, hi guys, nice to see you all again. I think we last touched base when I came to your area committees in May of this year, and gave you a bit of an update on some of the shortfalls and funding we were experiencing across all the existing local transport schemes via area committees. So since then, we've gone to the July Transport Committee to draw down that CAS funding and additional funding to fund that shortfall across all 9 area committees. And what that also did is drew down some money for the seed funding for next year, once we go into the new wave of area committee SIL Section 106 funded schemes shortly, which I can go into in a bit more detail if you like. But in terms of an update on the existing schemes, we have got a current construction start date for the Stockwood Lane pedestrian crossing of the 1st of March. I think we've been through various steps since we last met. The detailed design is pretty much getting to a kind of quite a good level now, and we're taking it through all our QA stages. I don't know if you've been briefed recently on the Stockwood Lane crossing, but I know that it's imminent in terms of showing you the latest proposal. But if you haven't, let me know, and I'll make sure that that's in the diary as soon as possible. Wingfield Road traffic calming. We are currently developing the design and working with councillors to get that kind of concept design sign off complete. Again, I mean, I'm going through what I've been told by the team managers here. If you want me to kind of dig into any more detail, I can take that away and get it for you. Councillor Wells.
Just on that one, you said working with councillors on the Wingfield Road, but I don't think we've been engaged recently on the topic.
Good to know. Okay, good to know. I'll make sure that you are. The feedback I've got is that it's imminent or in motion, but it sounds like it's not in motion. So in that case, it's imminent, and I'll give a prod to my team to bring that forward. Was there another hand that came up there?
Yes, Councillor Morris.
Hiya, Josh. So I met with Stephen Perrott today at Stockwood Lane. He was talking about the start date being during the summer holidays, school holidays next year, which there's a bit of a discrepancy between the 1st of March, which I think is what you quoted or said. So I don't care which it is, but I just want to make sure that it's accurate.
Consistency. Yeah, I think probably I have a master program that I rely on the project managers feeding into, and they update it every couple of weeks. I think with the construction start dates, maybe that's the reason why it's come about, is because we don't really get the exact dates until 2 months before the scheme can start, really, because that's when the contractors are commissioned and ready to go. So I guess there's probably very high level ambiguity about the start dates, but I will make sure that there's a consistent date on that one. Obviously I'll be pushing for March, but if Sean's been given recent developments on that suggest it's going to be the summer, then I'll update the program accordingly. I can only go off what my program tells me, but and it was updated today, so there's obviously a discrepancy. So thanks for flagging that, Councillor Morris.
No, that's fine. Well, A, it's Graham, and B, I only spoke to him at 11:30 this morning, so maybe he just didn't get a chance to do it before today. So I'm not worried.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Cheers.
Okay, cool. Thanks for flagging though. And I think that's the main updates really. On anything else, I'm welcome. Feel free to fire any questions my way. We'll go from there. Councillor Rippington.
Yeah, Josh, have you still got the Brislington, Wick Road, Newbridge Road on your list?
We do. We do have that on there at the moment. It's tied up with the Wecker scheme. Is the feedback on that, and obviously the funding is still retained within the area committee, but we are trying to get answers from Wecker about whether they need our funding or not. I'd rather give you the money back,
yes,
and them deliver the scheme for us.
They've never mentioned that they wanted the funding from. They've always said it was going to be part of the CRSTS project to do that work. So I would hold out definitely about handing over the money. I'm aware. I think it's going to consultation in the middle of October, from what I understand. So, but cling on to that money if you can.
I think this isn't obviously a decision-making platform, but I think maybe when we do have the chance to make a decision next, maybe we could be on the front foot with saying that the committee actually wants to use this money for other schemes within the area. This is our intention, and maybe that might push them into action to give us a bit of a response on that, because we have tried to do that and we're not getting anything back. So maybe that's the way to be a bit more proactive on it potentially.
I imagine, given the state with CRSTS, that there's plenty of money washing around within that to do this piece of work.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, and it's not an insignificant amount of money as well. That could be really well spent elsewhere. So I think we should be pushing for that for sure. I think just moving forward then. So we had an all councillor briefing a short while back about the new schemes coming forward, or the new process, as it were, for bringing new schemes to through transport. And I think the intention was to give all councillors a demo on the mapping tool, that we're really keen for people to log their issues and ideas for schemes next year. Now, I think that's going to be quite difficult to organise in the time frame we need. So what we're going to do is prepare a bit of a manual, easy sort of guide to how you can get your residents and yourselves to log issues. We'll probably do a video as well that you can send out to constituents and in your newsletters, because what we're really encouraging to do is that mapping tool to be the sort of main platform where we look at what people are asking for, and then what we will do in December as a transport team is prepare you a dedicated Area Committee 9 report, which will basically provide you with a lot of analysis based on issues that have been raised about what people are saying, what people's priorities are, what people want to see happening with the investment from Sales Section 106. And then my team will also use that data to commission the quantitative data, so your traffic counts, your speeding counts. So we've got a really good, rich data set when we get to the workshops in January, February next year. So we can work with councillors and the public to come up with, I guess, some inspiration for how we can develop proposals that are going to work for all our objectives, and will allow me to then go to a future transport committee next year to draw down some funding to then top up the current allocations for each area committee where it's needed. Some area committees don't need topping up probably based on what they've already got committed, but some definitely do. How we do that is going to be really important, and I'm working with our data team at the moment to try and work out a way of coming up with a prioritisation sort of matrix for how we apportion CAS money for local area committees that don't have the sufficient amount of funding to do something to deliver, I guess, the objectives and the ideas that come through from the workshops. So some really important pieces of work coming up. Councillor Rippington.
Yeah, thanks. So I think I may have missed that, but so there's CAS money that's been put aside to help deliver the schemes that are in the backlog, but you're now also saying that if we come forward with, or if you as transport team put together the things that people are requesting and come forward with a plan of what needs doing in our area, and that costs more money than we've got, that there may be CAS funding to top that up as well.
So broadly speaking, you're right. So we've got the funding approved from CAS to deliver all the existing schemes, the legacy schemes. We want to clear that backlog, and we're doing that. Within that report that went to the Transport Committee in July, we also asked for £300,000 to develop 2026 schemes. And when I say develop, I mean commissioning data, working more intimately with the community in these workshops, and yeah, because it's going to be a lot of officer resource to do this, and to sort of work up proposals that we think are going to be supported by the locals, and also to even do stuff like compile the reports based on the mapping exercise that people do, and then based on the proposals that come forward through stage one. So what we're hoping is essentially when the stage one submissions come through, there'll be, as a result of really clearly presented data from councillors and from us, and from working with them in workshops, looking at how we can solve the problems that have been raised through people's logging on the mapping exercise and the priorities that you councillors want to identify. We can base proposals on that and look at how much that's going to cost, and then draw down some additional funding where it's needed. Now, some area committees have got as little as 50k. That's going to get you, a few bollards and a drop-down curb, and that's not enough for what area committees need. So I want to make sure that, but to bring in additional funding, we need to be thinking a little bit more area wide, and how it all kind of connects, and how we can sort of put together some really comprehensive proposals that I can also look at other grants that we could try and tap into as well to really bulk up the budget. Because the bigger the budgets, the more likely it is you're going to get contractor on board, the less uplift you're going to get on contractor costs and stuff like that. So it's really important that we start to just bulk everything up, and to do that we need evidence-led approaches to the solutions that we're going to come forward with. So it's a new way of doing things. I'm hoping that we're going to learn some good things. There's going to be some things that might not work so well, but I think on the whole, this should really work well for the public and the area committees, because we're going to get more investment and hopefully deliver more objectives than we did previously. So hoping we're going to see a positive outcome on this.
That's great.
Any more
Thanks.
questions?
Thanks very much, Josh. Yeah, any further questions? Okay, brilliant. Thanks for your time, Josh.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Thanks, Josh.
So I think we were expecting to have the parks update next, but I can't see it. Officers in the portal yet.
Susie Feltham and Richard will be in 3 minutes' time. I'll just message them now.
I've got a question which I can ask if you'd rather rather than wasting 3 minutes.
Go for it.
I just wanted an update as to whether the application for Young Bristol has agreed to go into the what was it called? The community fund, or?
Yes. I also forget
It was
the equity fund.
Equity fund, wasn't it, Graham? The
That's
equity fund.
I forget everything. It's because I'm getting old.
So as far as I know, we haven't had a formal outcome from that yet, and I haven't been informed of anything. But Julia, do you know anything more about the down selection for the equity fund, or when we'll know more information about that?
So the 16 proposals that were eligible went to the equity fund, and that will be going into the Public Health and Communities Committee in November.
Okay.
November the 21st, so they'll make their decisions then. And which one, sorry, Councillor Varney? Oh, Councillor Morris, sorry.
We often get confused.
Apologies.
It was the Young Bristol one I was interested in, because I think that's the only one from this area. Maybe another one. So I was just curious. But if it waits till November, it'll wait till November.
Okay, I can. Richard Fletcher's here now, so I can double check for you and come back with an answer just to let you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Yes, welcome, Richard. Do you want to just briefly introduce yourself for the purpose of the recording, and then take it away with whatever update you've got for us?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Fletcher. I'm the head of Parks and Green Spaces at the council, and I'm going to build on, say a few things, building on the address I gave to all members in relation to area committees on the 10th of September, and touch on area committees asked to be consulted on grounds maintenance changes, and just touch on that. So on the 10th of September, I briefly set out some information that we're trying to collate into a map-based system to supply information that will help you all make decisions when it comes to allocating devolved CIL and Section 106 to projects in parks. And I set out that we would be able to provide, hopefully, a map which we've largely completed of where investment has taken place already. So you can begin to see kind of patterns of where money's been invested, and maybe areas where there hasn't been investment. Sometimes there are good reasons for that, but might be useful for you to see. I talked about providing information that comes from the Parks and Green Spaces strategy, which was adopted last year, particularly in terms of how we meet the provision standards for different types of space, particularly play, which I know is a real focus for members and something that you've repeatedly invested in over the years, which is great. We talked about providing information that was related to the condition of assets. That sort of information doesn't have great depth for us at the moment. We can provide some information on play equipment and play offers. We'll be building more information and data about the condition of assets over the next 2 to 3 years when we have a small but new team put in place to focus on that part of what we do. One of the main changes in terms of grounds maintenance that you will be seeing and witnessing, and is going to continue, is a shift to managing for nature. We have our 30% of council land managed for nature target to be delivered by 2030. That is a big commitment, and we are rolling that out now. So we have you may be aware of a project which is part funded by the council, part funded by the combined authority, which is our pilot project of changing grass cutting maintenance regimes to be more nature friendly. We have 2 or 3 different regimes which we're piloting at the moment with new equipment and new ways. That's been rolled out in a number of sites, and we're learning from that. Turns out it wasn't a very good year for learning about grass cutting because it wasn't growing very fast. So we'll be learning again next year. But we have started rolling that out. We are moving towards our 30%. So you will begin to see changes. What we are doing is there is a nature recovery network. You may be aware of that, which covers more than Bristol, but impacts on Bristol, and you can see how it acts in the city. What that network tells me as a land manager is that if I were to invest in nature where that network is in place, then the impacts for biodiversity will be that much greater. So they are our areas of focus. It doesn't stop communities and other nature-based park changes taking place at all, but it means in terms of strategically, that's where we'll be focusing our efforts. I also spoke on the 10th September about what I would like to do is provide you with another map of where we do grounds maintenance, what the features are that we have in our parks and how we maintain them, and the regimes that apply to them. That's to make it more transparent about what we do in the Park Service. When it comes to managing for nature, what we'll do is we'll bring in that, as it changes, we'll bring in that information into that map so you can see it change in real time. And also, hopefully, it will help you interpret what we do and where we do it. And it helps me better explain where there are changes and what impacts they will have. So that's coming. I obviously get asked a lot exactly when. Well, we're using it at the moment. We did an exercise last year where we updated this map data and made it more accurate than it was. Over time, this sort of data does start to deteriorate in accuracy, but we've updated it last year. It needs to be continually updated. And we are using it to inform a rollout of a system which moves into digital era effectively, where we download grounds maintenance tasks to operational teams on a tablet, and they then tick off that they have done that task, and that information feeds back into the system, and we're able in real time to demonstrate what we're doing and where we are in terms of an annual specification and regime. We're a little bit away being able to make that available. We're only just rolled out that to one part of the city, and it is complex and people do have to get used to it, and then we do have to check that it works, etc. So nevertheless, I would hope to think that we'll be providing you with more grounds maintenance map-based data that you can access as members in kind of the summer of next year, ideally. So I'll keep you informed as we go along as to how that's going. But hopefully that will make interpretation of what we're doing better. I am not at this point in time saying that it will necessarily be a public system. That is not because I want it not to be a public system, but I am conscious that grounds maintenance is impacted a huge amount by the weather, as I'm sure you all realise, and lots of other issues such as resources, the number of ad hoc work that we get, things like, traveller encampments and what have you take up resources. So our ability, if you like, to fit to our regime and specification does vary all the time. And I do need to avoid lots and lots and lots of public inquiries if it doesn't look like we're with our regime, because we simply won't cope with that demand. We already get 4,500 inquiries a year, so it's already a lot to deal with. So I'll be keeping my eye on that in terms of how we present information on what we make live and available. Yes, so as I say, that will be a good tool to use to see what we do, but also to overlay where there are changes in terms of managing for nature, and a good tool to use for you to discuss with communities about where that you might want to see changes in terms of managing for nature or for other reasons. And I will leave my bit there and take questions.
Thank you, Richard. So we'll come to Councillor Clark first.
Thank you. Just a bit of clarity, really. We have the weekly briefings, which are for all councillors, which are about general issues. And it strikes me that what we've just heard from you is about general information. What I've come to this meeting for this evening is to talk about things which specifically affect Area 9. And so I was wondering if we could concentrate on actually issues within our wards rather than things which are affecting the whole city, because that's dealt with elsewhere.
I'm perfectly willing to answer questions. I don't have any specific Area 9 issues that I need to share with you, but I'm certainly here to answer questions if you do. Obviously, Susie will be giving you an update on projects related to Area 9.
Okay, because that's more interesting than stuff that's affecting the whole city for the purposes of this meeting, really. I mean, I think Councillor Varney and I will have a question about a project in Brislington West, which I believe your department feels you've delivered, and actually nothing has been delivered, which is kind of quite interesting around communication and contractors and all sorts of issues like that. It was only when it was raised that Steve Clampin said he thought that it had happened, the project had been delivered, and I don't think we've got any evidence that it has. So those are the sorts of things
should we hold that question for Susie's section in just a moment then, and then
happy to. I'm just saying that I think we need to spend our time wisely here this evening about specifics to do with our wards.
I agree. Councillor Rippington.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree with what you say, Joss, but I've got a couple of questions about the general way things work, which apply to our ward just as much as anywhere else. So, Richard, do I understand from what you're saying that we don't have enough data on the state of our parks equipment to know when things need replacing? I would expect the council to know what the state of all our parks equipment was in and have a kind of rolling program of what needs to be replaced and when, so that it doesn't fall into disrepair. But are you saying we don't have that data is not in a good enough position at the moment?
So we tend to have reasonable data when it comes to play equipment because they are an asset that's very regularly inspected. But in terms of our wider asset base, which is significant, our inspection resources were cut during austerity years ago. So that data is severely deteriorated, and I wouldn't share it now. We do have some condition data related to walls and related to footpaths, which is a bit old, but nevertheless, there hasn't been a major investment in either of those things, so I suspect it's still relevant. So we also haven't had a capital maintenance budget to invest in those assets either. So we found ourselves going round and round in circles inspecting back then and not being able to respond in terms of a maintenance program. So two things: I am seeking a capital maintenance fund through the council, working in a very competitive environment for funds, which I don't need to tell you. So we'll see how that pans out. And as I say, at the same time, I'm basically reinvesting into a small asset management team. So hopefully going forward, we'll get better grip of what the condition of assets is. But at the moment, it's hands up time. I don't have a good enough sense of the condition of our assets across the park service. I guess what I can assume, given that we haven't majorly invested in an asset maintenance program, is that it's worse than it was 10 years ago or so.
Okay, but in terms of parks play equipment, you've got a better handle on that than footpaths and things, because obviously that's that's an area where where we would be very liable if something goes wrong in those sort of areas with children playing on equipment and that kind of thing.
Yes, we have got a better view. There's two things just to note there, I suppose, is that we do safety inspections of play equipment, and which is slightly different to condition inspections, but nevertheless the condition of those is understood as a result of those safety inspections. So yeah, we're much better when it comes to data on play areas. Sorry.
Okay. And very quickly, the second question is about grass cutting and that kind of thing. One of the things I've noticed in our parks is that we tend to leave the areas underneath trees to grow, and then we cut the playing field type parts at the moment. And I'm just wondering, especially like after the long hot summer we've had, whether there's any thought being given to the fact that those areas underneath trees in the shade are actually the areas where people might want to sit to get out of the sun, and whether we're doing that a bit us about face, if you like, in terms of we're making the areas where people can sit and get out of the sun less hospitable because they're allowed to grow. So is there any thought about that within your team?
It's a good spot. I mean, I don't think it's not a very universally applied method, but there was a point in time when we pushed that as a measure to not cut under trees. That was based on basically nature conservation officer advice that there are good nature conservation gains to be made if we do that. But I'm more than happy to take local community input into how green spaces work, because we don't use them day to day, and if that's not the right thing for that part, then we can do something about it. I mean, I hope one of the significant benefits of this digital system rolling out is we can make those changes so that when tasks get brought into a tablet, an operator's tablet on a site, they will see that there's a change and implement that change. Now, I don't live in a perfect world, and it is difficult sometimes to control exactly what people do, but that will be the benefit we should be deriving from this process.
Okay, I might drop you a line then. It's St Anne's Park in particular is where I've noticed that that happens. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Rivington. I'm going to jump in with my question next, which is bring it back to this area committee. So you mentioned that your initiatives for managing for nature will be concentrated in the areas that are part of that wider nature network. Sorry, I've forgotten the name of it, but I remember seeing it myself in the past. Does that area cover the area covered by this committee just offhand? Do you know, or if not, is that something you can share with us where to find out?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I mean, the Nature Recovery Network, it is available online, so I can find a link for you. And it pretty much probably reaches most parts of the city, not all green spaces in the city by any means, but most parts of the city. And I suspect it will cover certainly part of Brislington, certainly, because it will come in on the river corridor, and it might come in via kind of Brislington Meadows and through and to Nightingale Valley, etc., and St Anne's. So I very much suspect it will stop with open space.
Okay, perhaps if you could dig out that link and share it with the committee, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Morris.
Hi, Richard. Good evening. I'll keep it very short. In terms of grass cutting, if we can avoid leaving grass to grow for nature right outside people's houses, I think that would be would make it easier for everyone, because a lot of people will see the lack of grass cutting as being a cost-saving measure, and a lot of people take pride in their homes and want to see the grass cut, as my experience as a councillor. So I think when you come to doing that work, you're going to have to sell the message very carefully, and we can get on board and help it, but I would need more information to try and sell it to residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morris. I know that this is a subject that you've talked to me about a number of times, so I know you're keen on this, and you're right. And I think leaving grass longer in the city in the past was a cost-saving measure as we went through those austerity years. Obviously, a different emphasis now, but you're pointing out what is the case. So a few years ago, I'll illustrate it this way. I asked my colleagues to tell me, in terms of our inquiries that we get, how many inquiries I get to cut grass more and how many inquiries I get to cut grass less. And about 4 years ago, it was probably 95% cut more, 5% cut less. And that ratio is now about 60-40. So we are getting more requests to leave grass long. It's still not the majority of requests we get. So that tells me that we still have to be really careful about where we do these things, and we do need local input to make sure we get it right. And a bit like with tree planting, when you've been tree planting, several hundred trees every year for a decade or more, it starts to get more difficult to find locations. And I think when we're rolling out Managing for Nature, we'll begin to find that as well. So I think local feedback is going to be really important. So we will and are bearing that in mind.
Right, thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. So shall we move on to Susie then for the update on the project? Susie, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly for the recording and then take it away?
Yeah, sure. I'm Susie Feltham. I'm Landscape Works and Play Manager for Parks. And I'm going to update you on the current projects that are under Area Committee 9. It's based on I did do an update in August, a written update that was sent round. So there's 2 projects currently live in Area Committee 9. Redcatch Park, which has spent some of the money that's there, but there is the rest of the money to be spent on the play area and play equipment, and that is out to tender as we speak, along with another 4 play area projects. So it's going to be done as a kind of batch of 5 play areas being delivered all together. And so there's better economies of scale basically, and it's more attractive to the contractors that as a package, because it's a high return for them. So that's that one. It's back. I think the tender's back in the middle of next month. So it's a couple of weeks still to run on that. It's been a 6-week kind of turnaround on the tenders, and we are getting. We just had another one back that was 3 play areas, and we got quite a good response from that. So we've had a few tenderers to choose from, whereas we've had recent issues with our tenders that are just going out for single play areas. We're not getting enough, and now we're having to re-tender them, and it's just adding on to the project time. So that's good in terms of that. And then the other one, which Councillor Clark was mentioning, is Anna's Court Park, and the money for environmental improvements. Steve has since come back spoken to both myself and the conservation officer, nature conservation officer, and asked about the swale that his team dug, and it's not deep enough. I've sent and also Becky, the nature conservation officer, rightly sort of advised for it to be longer as well, for a swale to capture the water properly. So I've sent out designs, and Steve's going to get onto that basically, and dig it deeper, and also pile the soil on the kind of downhill side, so that it's properly done. Also, we've had the communities come back. Rachel and the communities come back to us about the planting that failed, some woodland planting that was put up on the banking, and some of it's failed due to the dry summer. So Becky's given said advice about that as well, the Nature Conservation Officer, in terms of species that we can replant. And so they're going to be replanted this autumn, winter as well. And I've asked about planting for the swale as well. So that's going on. There were some benches that have been installed, which was part of that project as well. So they've been installed, and I believe that before the community link, Rachel had gone out with Steve Clampin from the area team and had a look at what needed to be done. So yeah, so I think there is that connection there, but yes, there was a misunderstanding on exactly what a swale would look like. Okay. I think that's
Councillor Clark and Varney, do you want to come in on that? And mine's related to the previous point, so I'll wait.
Joss, if you want to go ahead, feel free.
I was just looking through the photograph of the swale. I must admit, Andrew and I know we've repeatedly said this at these meetings, that as councillors we are the client, and it would actually be really nice as a client to be informed that actually work is going to take place. That would be really useful, rather than just it happening and nobody informs us. The benches, thank you very much. The swale is not at all what I was expecting, to be absolutely frank with you. It's just I mean, Andrew, I'm sure you can find the photograph. I've been looking, I can't find it. It's just a scrape of earth. So it's just been,
yeah,
the
you're right.
topsoil's been taken down by the looks of it by about that much. But that's not, I mean, I'm not talking about an attenuation pond or anything like that, but this is not what we were expecting, and certainly not what we were expecting for our money. And I don't know that just scraping that couple of inches off is going to make a jot of difference anywhere. So, I mean, our level of disappointment is pretty high, as you can hear. I mean, obviously, the other thing is it takes a rather long time to deliver any of these projects as well, that's disappointing. That's disappointing for our communities. I'll hand over to Andrew. Thank you.
Well, Joss, I think you've covered most of the points, but I also want to thank Susie for mentioning what has happened in Arno's Court Park, and I'm pleased, to see. I had to go along and cycle around and find them for myself, but yes, I did find that new benches have been installed. Thank you for getting back to us about the hedge planting higher up the slope. You also mentioned boggy wetland planting for the swale. Yeah, that is definitely what we're expecting. And as Joss said, it's literally just a digger's gone along, scraped out a bit of earth and left it. And obviously that's not what we're expecting. It needs to be deeper, longer, as you say, and also with planting. So yeah, so obviously the project hasn't been delivered yet. And as Joss said, we would like to be kept informed as well, so that we can then keep our residents informed. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you, councillors. My question, Susie, was just related to the previous point about the Redcatch Park play area. Just wondering about the anticipated delivery time for that. I know you haven't got the responses back, so there will be nothing firm, but what target date do you have in mind for delivering those play areas as part of that tender?
I think it's due to be January, February time, because once the tenders come back, then there's usually a lead-in time for the play equipment, which can be up to 3 months these days. So yeah, I suspect they're going to. The aim is they are programmed to finish before the end of the financial year. But I think with the lead-in time, it is going to be January, February that they'll start on site, with the aim to be finished by the end of March.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. And then, as per the previous councillors, would be happy to be kept informed as things progress. That would be helpful. Councillor Hayward.
Can I just ask what's actually planned for the Redcatch Park play equipment? I mean, I know the Ventures Redcatch Park had thoughts on this and sent in their what they thought was needed, but I haven't seen anything about what's actually planned.
Yeah, I know that they wanted to have a zip wire, which they wanted to have outside the play area, but with they wanted to sort of tie it into a new play area, really. But as they've only got this money now, and the developments that were due to happen hadn't happened next to the park, we thought we'd just update the equipment in the play area. I can't, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, remember exactly what was going in, but I can find that out and ask the project lead to inform you and to send out. I mean, what we do normally once the and I'm sorry this didn't happen for Arno's Court, but when we get the quotes back, then a message goes out, you know, when we've got an idea of when things are starting, and to sort of talk about exactly what is happening. So yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last questions for the parks team? No. Okay. Oh, Katya, please go ahead.
I just wanted to know if there was any progression on the play area in Eastwood Farm for the older sets of
For the older children.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going through this area, this next round of area committee, isn't it? So it's there is additional money that's being sought for SIL.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of been delayed at the moment, even though they've got the majority of the money. They were looking for another
Yeah, they were looking for
exactly
6,000
I think it's
or
about
something.
8K or something. I think.
8K,
Yeah.
6K, yeah. I thought they'd found it for somewhere else. Sorry, and then there was the other one, which was also a play area, but it was like a self-sculpture that was going up in Nightingale Valley.
Yeah, like
Bridlington Brook,
it
Friends of
was
Bridlington Brook.
seating around the seating area, wasn't it? Down in yeah.
Yeah, a sort of arts project as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also being sought money from this round of area committee. So
Okay, Doke. That looks like everyone. So thanks again for your time, Richard and Susie.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you.
So I think we are going to the Waste and Neighbourhood Enforcement team next. Ken, welcome. Would you like to just introduce yourself quickly for the recording and then take it away with your update?
No problem. Right. Hi, I'm Ken Lawson, Head of Waste and Neighbourhood Enforcement and Street Scene. I'm going to give you a bit of an update where we are with collections and some other street related issues, and then just generally answer questions or listen to concerns you may have. I suppose it's not new to you as councillors that over the last year and 18 months there was massive service issues that we were experiencing, and since March of this year we have been on a steady downward curve in failures in work and relative improvements in the service delivery up until the last 2 weeks, and we've had a bit of a spate of sickness and vehicle failures. Bristol Waste are addressing the vehicle failures because our refuse fleet have compaction bodies, and as they get older, you have metal on metal grinding every time the bins are emptied and the back of the machine compacts. And Bristol Waste are undertaking a refurbishment, rather costly but necessary refurbishment regime on the back of the refuse trucks, which should improve the reliability, but it started and we need to go through a cycle. So we're just addressing and managing that. Also within Bristol Waste, the management regime has changed. There's new supervisors, new operations directors, and the way that the staff are being tasked and managed has improved significantly. So although we've got a bit of an issue at the moment, we are hoping that it is going to be resolved quickly, and we're already planning for the sort of the Christmas period. When it comes to the neighbourhood enforcement and street side of things, at the moment my team is experiencing quite a bit of staff shortage itself. We've got some long-term sickness and some failed recruitment, and a lot of our attention is being spent on vehicle dwelling. The team successfully moved the vehicles on from New Stadium Road by IKEA, and they're doing a consultation and attending consultation meetings regarding vehicle dwelling on the whole across the city. So there's a bit of work in that area. We have the new Fix My Street reporting system in, and that is enabling us to monitor and keep up to breath with fly tipping far more accurately than we did before we had it. It is also leading to residents reporting more fly tips, which is a positive thing. It may not be for the number of reports, but it's a positive thing that people are actively doing it. And we are tasking Bristol Waste accordingly regarding that. On the whole, street cleansing seems to have been improved a little recently, although when I was going past Brislington Parade on Monday, or was that yesterday, I was disappointed with the level of weeds that were showing outside the shops and around the planters. So Bristol Waste will be going back to sort that out. And we have a long-term project that we're looking to implement, which is what we're calling the non-standards, which we would implement along generally arterial routes and the city centre to get flats above shops not keeping their bins on the streets, but removing it and standardising the waste provision. One of the examples that I'm looking at is I would call it the Bath Road coming up from the Brislington Parade, where you've got the large embankment with the houses on significantly higher level. All the wheel bins down, all the wheelie bins down there need to be moved because they are, they're an eyesore, but also they've restricted the access along that bit of pavement, which has got a bus lane beside it. So I need to find a long-term fix for this. I'm not sure the non-standards as I'm proposing it would work because there's a large number of HMOs in that block of buildings, but we need to sort of identify long-term solutions. We looked at the rear alley, but we can't get in. I didn't like driving my own car down it, let alone a refuse truck or a recycling truck. So that's not possible. So there's that sort of thing. But on the whole, I mean that's it really. So I would let you guys raise concerns, I think, on this and or issues or anything. So over to you guys.
Councillor Rippington got in just before me. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, there's one particular issue I've got with a lane which runs from Broomhill Road to Bonville Road, which was logged through Fix My Street. And the answer I got back was that the location doesn't fall within our contracted remit. And as a result, removal will take place when resources allow. And I wasn't quite sure what that means, really. I mean, I think it's public right of way, but if it's not Bristol Waste, then who would clear that? So
it's one of the nuances. I suppose it's one of the unforeseen consequences of this is that Bristol Waste are contracted to cleanse the highway and remove fly tips from the highway, housing land, public rights of way which aren't the highway or council owned land isn't part of that. It wasn't contracted with Bristol Waste. Now, ultimately, I don't hold a budget for cleansing all of that, but I am getting it undertaken. It's just that Bristol Waste to manage expectations, and I suppose to not impact on their KPIs, they're responding like that. Now, what Kurt James, and most of you will know Kurt James, is doing is looking at ways that we manage Bristol Waste to not close it like in that sort of way, because ultimately they will need to do something about that. I am approaching the housing to increase their element of funding towards fly tip removal and their bulky stores on their estate, because it hasn't really the amount that they assign to me for that service hasn't changed significantly since about 2018-17, and yet we've gone through massive inflation, and actually what we're seeing across the housing estate is more people putting out more things. So their bin stores are fuller than they ever have been, and we are seeing more fly tipping of bulky items. So I need housing to up that level of funding so that they can then have a comparable performance level similar to the highways, so that then everything's removed within a 72-hour period, or should be, that's the target, and then you wouldn't necessarily see that sort of pushback.
Right. I mean, yeah, this isn't with housing. It's literally a lane that goes from one road to another. And I think the residents moved all the stuff to the end of the lane to make it easy to collect. I'm just wondering how long, when they say we'll do that when everything else allows, I'm just wondering how long we can be expecting to wait.
Yeah, I suppose the thing that I don't like to harp on about, because it's a decision that was made in the past, but in 23 we had a cut to the cleansing budget and a fly tip removal vehicle was lost. That has meant that there is a delay with some of these things that aren't seen as the business as usual within the contract. But I am putting in extra resource to try and manage that. So I've made a note of it, and I'll get it actioned accordingly.
Okay, thanks. I'll pop the reference in the chat if you like, just so.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks. So my question next. I have a question, Ken, on the scope of responsibility for greenery, branches, bushes, and things overhanging onto the footway from private premises.
Yep.
We had a case in Knoll that kind of seemed to get passed back and forth between neighbourhood enforcement and highways, and we're talking like six months here of trees dangerously overhanging the footway and forcing people to walk in the Wells Road. So the question is, which team is responsible for following up on those with the private residents, and what's the best way to report those kind of things? Is it Fix My Street or something else?
I would say Fix My Street, because Fix My Street is the way that highway issues are reported, but also street scene issues now. So if you report it via Fix My Street, I would have said we do the enforcement on behalf of the highway. So one of my team may correct me, but at a later date, but I would have said we are responsible for issuing notices to the residents. So if you send me through the addresses that you have in question, I will look to follow that up. You say it's on the Wells Road, so I will. I'll go back to the team and find out if they have a recollection of this and get some notices issued. When I lived in London, I received one of those, and I quickly went out and trimmed my hedge because I didn't want to fine. So, well, my landlord threatened me with a surcharge, and then I went out and did it. So, yeah, it does help.
Thanks. Yeah. So the address is the Southlands Care Home. So it's a big NHS care home actually that needs to look after its grounds better.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I will raise that with the team, get something issued.
Thanks, Ken. So Councillor Herngin.
I was just looking at things. I was going to tell you about the Brimill one, but now Tim said that. There's another one where we have repeat offenders that are constantly throwing things. The Whitton Road is one area, and I wondered if you do any tracing of who's doing the actual fly tipping. The other one is Eastwood Farm. There seem to be repeat offenders all the time. They've cleared it up, the local residents clear it up, or they've cleared it up and then it happens again. And some of it down Whitton Road very much looks like businesses doing it rather than just someone chucking out their couch.
So we do try, the enforcement team will follow up on reports of fly tipping. If we can find evidence in bag waste, we can take action, and we can also get our third-party contractor 3GS to undertake some enforcement if we find bagged waste with addresses in. With items such as bulky items which may not have addresses on, we ideally need eyewitnesses to be able, or CCTV to be able to like take action, and the CCTV or some filming needs to ideally have a vehicle reg, because if you see someone who's badly shaven with my sort of complexion, you can't necessarily identify who that is, but with a vehicle reg or something like that, you can then follow it back to the owner and then hold someone accountable. So we do have some mobile cameras that we can move around. So if you do have a couple of hotspots, what was the one you mentioned?
Whitton Road, there's a few parking lots there off the road. I believe that the council is now looking to build housing on those parking lots, which would help with the. But they seem to get regular, and I know the local people are too scared to say who it is. I have to keep the people that complain to me anonymous, which I do respect, because they are quite frightened. And I don't know whether how dangerous it really is or not, but they are quite frightened down there, and it seems to be just they get it cleared, and then a few months later it's full again. And there was a business doing business down there with some sort of scrap car thing, which wasn't supposed to be there.
Okay, well, we'll follow that up and get the team to go out and have a look.
Okay, Councillor Varney.
Thank you, Ken. There are a number of houses in Brislington West and other areas that face directly onto the pavement. So, for example, Bath Road between Edward Road and Chatsworth Road. Also Eaton Road, and actually in Brislington East, Bristol Hill is a good example, where people leave their wheelie bins on the pavement because they have nowhere else to store it. And quite often those pavements are quite narrow and it is a bit of an obstacle. I'm just wondering, why are houses that don't have storage issued with wheelie bins? Surely it'd be more sensible if they were provided with refuse sacks that they could put out on the day of the collection, they're taken away, and then there's no storage issue. Is that something that Bristol Waste is looking at, or has it been discounted for any reason?
So I'll be totally honest. Like when things were rolled out back in 2011, and we had wheelie bins, like it was a one size fits all. We issued out wheelie bins and we moved forward. Now, the decisions that were made back then, on the whole, have been very good, because we're the highest recycling authority that are comparable not only in a core city point of view, but also like near statistical neighbours. Like I think only Reading, out of about 13 large metropolitan areas, is probably got a higher recycling rate than us. So a lot of positive stuff has been done. The storage of bins on the highway is partially probably the result of two things. There was a repeal of the Environment Protection Act in about 2018, which meant that we can't issue like notices direct to households and take action. One for like waste presentation. We used to have more power, but now it's been watered down that we have to there's like 5 layers of hurdles we have to jump over, which make it, for a team such as Bristol's, extremely is nigh impossible to sort of implement. So we are lobbying for more powers, because as we move forward with more HMOs, more students living in the city, more deregulation of planning, and more conversion of shops into flats and offices into flats, it's creating massive challenges. And I have a slide that I'll happily flick up on the screen at the end, which shows you my thinking on it. But it means that there's far more challenges, and us as authority have less enforcement powers than we used to. So the challenges are getting greater, and the powers that we've got to unpick all of this are less, and also the resources are less, because the other thing is that when we had back in 2011, the waste team within the council was circa 20 people, and now the waste team is 2, and then we've got the enforcement team, and we used to have loads of waste engagement officers, bin doctors, and they would go out and address these things and manage it. So the challenge is there. Now, what I'm looking to do is unpick the most key elements, and it's like where we have the arterial routes, and there's flats above shops, and so therefore it's really hard to unpick what the situation is, so we need to make it simple. Where there is sort of risks, which I would say Bath Road is potentially that area I talked to you about, and then some other challenging streets. The risk I've got is if it's a terrace street and all the houses are just terraced houses and they're storing their bins on the street, generally we might look to do more of an enforcement point of view, to say, issue letters saying please take your bins in, because actually people are more likely to do that. If the terrace streets have been converted into flats and so you've got 2 bins for each property, or you've got no garden space, then it's more challenging to do. So if you take like one example, Picton Street in Montpellier is got flats and shops, and it's been turned, most of the terrace houses have been turned into 2 or 3 flats, and so we would deem that to be necessarily to move across on a bag system. But maybe one of your streets, because it is just terraced houses, we wouldn't look to do that, because ultimately if we move people to a bag system, you have to increase the frequency of the collection, and I need to try and balance cost. To be honest, I want to drive the best service and manage the risks as best I can, and it's about where does the threshold land, and that's sort of where we're at. The new service we're looking to bring in isn't in fully, and it will be, you know, a new service to try and unpick some key areas, and it's about 8,000 households across the city. But you know, Bristol is predominantly Victorian properties, so if we unpick every terrace street, I'd end up with all of the city ending up with a sack collection, right? You know, 25% of the city ending up with a sack collection, and that would be costly. And also, I think there might be unforeseen street scene litter issues with, you know, bagged waste being stored on the street, and what are nice quiet streets becoming littered more than on arterial routes where you have those issues anyway, if you know what I mean, if you catch my drift. So yeah.
Thanks. A very long answer, but no, thank you very much.
I've tried to be transparent, but also relay the challenges with it.
Yeah. But so there are some properties where they are issued with bags, where they don't have wheelie bins. That's what we're saying basically. But I think probably we need a few more of those scenarios. You know, otherwise we are just going to have our public realm littered with wheelie bins or days on end, and that's not satisfactory.
Yeah. And ideally we're looking for it's a mixture of enforcement and pivoting the service, but the expectation management is we couldn't afford to do all terraces in a similar way. It would be by exception, if you see what I mean.
I think there is a slight difference between bin sack collection, as in people just put the you know, the plastic bin bags directly on the street, which, as you say, requires normally a higher frequency. But there is I think what Councillor Varney was referring to is the kind of seagull sack, the larger like fabric sacks that replace the wheelie bin.
Yeah.
And I actually live on a street where we have the seagull sacks because we're not on the public highway, and we have the normal 2 weekly frequency. So I think, and it works completely fine. So I think
Oh
it's
well,
something
I
to
see. This is
consider.
where my knowledge of the whole city is lacking, because that's good to hear. So I might be in touch, Councillor Wells. What I'll do is quickly show you the slide I was talking about. Sorry, I'll just quickly share the screen. Bear with me. There we go. Right. Okay. So it's my sort of brain dump. So if I do full on slide deck, I lose control of being able to see stuff, and my computer's melted down. But you've got key areas like legislation, services, governance, landlords, flats, planning, and then all of the and you could also add in like deprivation and diversity, because all of that leads to how people behave in the environment. And so all of these areas then also have an impact, or have things that are linked to them, and then it leads to poor waste presentation, which leads to low flight recycling rates, fly tipping, and detrimental impacts on the street scene like litter or tagging. It's that classic broken window syndrome. So that's my sort of way of trying to show how the challenges are all. There's lots of challenges that lead to some of these things that we see. And it's about how can we unpick some of those as we go along. So there we go. My mind is a very messed up place. So
looks a bit like a murder board, doesn't it? From
yeah. I should be on Death in Paradise, shouldn't I? Just need a picture on there. Right. Okay.
So, Councillor Hayward, a question.
Yeah, I mean, just on this last point about around bins for those streets that are Victorian streets and terraced flats. I honestly just think we need more communal bins. That's what I had when I lived on a Victorian street before I moved to Bristol. We had I moved to having a communal bin. At first there's uproar about it, but actually it works much better, I found. I just feel like that's the way to go.
Ooh, so that is really interesting, Councillor Hayward, because what we find in our areas such as St Paul's, where we've gone to a communal bin system because of the high density of HMOs and large sort of Georgian or Victorian properties converted into 3, 4, 5 flats. We've got communal bins, and the street scene impact of that is significant, because you're finding that people are, they become what I would call honeypots for lots of issues. So you end up with lots of fly tipping because people are putting their waste there. You end up with people doing the right thing and putting their bags in the rubbish, but then some people put the bags on the floor, and then the next person goes, oh, the bin's full, we'll put our bags on the floor. And then you end up with a mountain of bags on the floor, and then foxes and litter and all of those sorts of things. So I mean, if you separate to this, if you let me know where you lived before, I'll happily review what they did in that authority and see if we can learn some lessons, because certainly my experience of communal bins within areas of Bristol, because also we have similar challenges in Clifton around studented areas, and it is that I'm trying to stay away from communal bins on the streets, because I don't want to create more on-street issues, and my mind on a page, lots of all those lines start overcrossing and going in zigzags all over the place, and it's just no, let's unpick it. Try and keep the individual. My principle is we need to try and keep people as individually responsible for their waste as possible, because there is a peer pressure element of, oh, I need to put my recycling out because they're doing it, or oh, it's bin day, I better put my rubbish out, or oh look, they're doing that, I better do that. So or if people don't, they're easily held accountable, which is very easy for us to. But if you go to communal bins, it's like, oh, I'll just drop it down the road and then it's not my problem. And that seems to be the experience. It's like that people's inhibitions towards how they manage or are responsible for their waste sort of fall away a little bit. So again, sorry for waffling. Councillor Rippington?
Yeah, well, just on that point, interesting, because I've just come back from Italy where they have, communal bins seems to be the way they work. And I think it must be a cultural thing because they don't seem to have those sorts of problems. Everybody seems to be quite happy to make sure they put their waste in the communal bins. And Spain is the same as well, I've noticed.
Yeah,
but I think it's a cultural thing. People are used to it being an individual thing here now. So it would be very difficult to sort of change the mindset. But it does work in other places, definitely.
Yeah,
But that was what I was going to ask about is I saw you had HMOs on your mind board thing. Do you get consulted when new HMOs come up for planning permission? Do you get consulted? Because we've got one in our ward that's in for planning permission at the moment, and it's a previously a family house that's been converted into 6 bedroom HMO. It's at the top of a flight of stairs, so it's not easy, it's not on the pavement. And obviously you're now going to have sort of six sets of people trying to put their rubbish out instead of one, and that's one of the major issues that's been raised by residents as an objection. So I'm wondering, do you get consulted at the planning stage when things like that come along?
We do get consulted on planning applications, but generally it's of larger elements, and actually Bristol Waste do that review because they took the old waste team across to within them. We have a requirement within HMO licenses that they should manage their waste properly, and we have a new guidance document that we created about 3-4 years ago, which is about 50 pages, which tells people about how much literage they should allow for the different recycling regimes, recycling streams, and about the capacity of bins and where they should store them. So all of that has been drafted. I'm glad your residents are raising waste as an issue, because that will be an issue. And if you let me know which address it is separately, I will raise a bit of a concern myself, because they're the sorts of addresses where we do end up catching the problem, and it becomes a problem that the community have to deal with, and preventing that will be far better.
Okay, yeah, just let you know the chat is turned off on this, so I've emailed you about the other things, and I'll forward this on. I'll forward this on as well, so you'll have a pile of emails to look forward to.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, Ken, I think that's it for the questions for you, so we can draw that item to a close. So thanks again for your time. And
no, thank you all, and all the best. Cheers.
Thanks, Ken. Julia, did we have a further officer update?
Yes, we do. So this is a verbal update sent by email through Peter Anderson, Director of Property Assets and Infrastructure, around community asset transfers, to let you know there is no new surplus, that they are taking a paper around for disposal, but this relates to commercial area, and there are no new community asset transfer updates or applications from the Community Asset Transfers Board.
Okie doke. Thank you, Julia. Any questions from councillors on that item? No. Okie doke.
And if I can just answer Councillor Morris's question before you go on to the next agenda item. So there are 2 in AC9 that are eligible for the equity funding, and that is Hungerford Community Centre and the BS14 Youth Club. As I said, that decision will be made on the 21st of November through the Public Health and Communities Committee. However, your formal committee meeting is on the 17th of November, so please to be aware if you want commit.
Oh, Julia, you've gone on mute somehow.
Oh, sorry about that. So if you want to guarantee funding, obviously you will be allocating funding before the Public Health and Communities Committee. So just to be aware of that.
Do you think, Julia, by the time we get to our next meeting, that although the final decision won't have been made by the Public Health Committee, that we will have a view as to what the recommended decision is? Like, do we know that they have are they massively oversubscribed and they're going to need to have to live debate in the meeting, or is it more that they just need to allocate funding to the projects that were submitted? How's it looking?
So the sum of requested funds through stage 2 is 696,348, and currently in the equity funding pot there's 222,478, so hugely oversubscribed.
In that case, we might have to have a chat with our respective colleagues on the Public Health and Communities Committee to sort of understand how their priorities are lying, but noting that we can't guarantee what that decision will be. It's a bit unfortunate that that's coming after our stage 2 meeting, but such is life. Okay, thank you. Julia, did you have were there any other updates to be provided?
No other updates, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julia. So the last item on the agenda is a bit of an open-ended one. I think there's no particular structure for this. I might propose that we don't do this now. This discussion on priorities, since we're approaching the end of the meeting and we've already lost a few councillors. So how do other councillors feel about that? Applause from Councillor Varney. Okay,
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Perhaps Julia, once we receive the information about the still stage 2 proposals, the costings and that kind of thing, perhaps that can be distributed by email and councillors can have a think, and perhaps we can discuss by email as a group ahead of the next meeting, so that we're well armed for our still stage 2 prioritisation discussion. So on that note, we can draw the meeting to a close. So thank you very much, councillors, for your time, and in particular, thank you to the officers for making your time available this evening. See, Julia, do we have a date for the next meeting? You did mention it earlier, but I should mention it at the end.
Yeah, it's the 17th of November.
17th of November, and we are due to have that in Knoll, is that correct?
Yes, I can confirm that the booking's been made for the Park Centre.
Great, so we'll see you on the 17th of November at the Park Centre in Knoll. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Good meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.